Hi there, listeners. It's Lisa Starr in Win Business. I'm back with another episode of StarrCast Podcast. So I thought today we should talk about something that's been on the news constantly, which is wellness retreats. I don't think you can open a newspaper or a magazine and not see an article about wellness retreats. Everyone's going on them. They want to go on them. They've been on them. They want to hear more about them. And I thought, let's have an expert on wellness retreats. And so we are lucky to be joined today by Vivienne Tang, who is the founder, and CEO of Destination Deluxe. And you probably already follow Vivienne on Instagram because most of the world seems to do that, and watch her in beautiful locales in pools and jungles outside, having a great time at various wellness destinations. She's working, I get it, but it's not the worst job. Thank you for joining us, Vivienne.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. Thank you.
So Vivienne joins us today from Switzerland. She is Swiss and lives there when she is not on a plane or in a lovely jungle or safari retreat somewhere. Vivienne, I'm thinking back to when you and I met has been many years. I believe you were the editor of Asia Spa magazine. Maybe it was about 15 years ago, but your path into wellness preceded that. So could you share a little bit with us about, when Vivienne grew up in
Yeah,
Switzerland, what
yeah.
happened next?
So I went on to study fashion design and then moved into fashion publishing, and that was kind of how I ended up in the wellness field. Yes, I was a fashion editor for many years, and then
Did you ever do fashion design or did you just study
I,
it and
I
then?
I didn't. I studied it and then moved straight into publishing.
So
Yeah.
you were like a journalist studying fashion design.
So I went into kind of like styling and then started writing and then obviously worked as a fashion editor for many years. But yeah, I was missing sort of depth, and I wanted something like my personal journey. I was sort of I started meditating back then, and then I don't know, I was trying out different holistic therapies. I mean, back then it was all called New Age, wellness was still very uncool back then. But yeah, my personal journey kind of led me to wellness, and eventually with the role at Asia Spa, I was kind of able to kind of combine those two things, publishing and wellness.
Did fashion publishing jump into spa, which, and you're right, wellness wasn't even a word back then, but
Yeah.
how did that segue happen?
So this is when blogs came up. So I had a blog in Hong Kong when I was living in Hong Kong, for wellness, like holistic wellness in Hong Kong. And that's kind of how everything started. I started this online magazine, which was sort of unheard of back then because people just had regular websites and everything was still pretty much print. And so I had this website, and then I did the job at Asia Spa, and eventually I kind of realized everything was moving online. And
Hmm.
eventually then I made the big jump and I kind of revamped the blog that I had, this like local holistic online magazine, and it became Destination Deluxe, and it became global. It became more travel inspired. I mean, by then retreats were already sort of quite big already back then. And
How long were
so
you at Asia Spa magazine?
I was there for about 3 or 4 years.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And that
Uh,
was a time, as I recall, when Asia was really happening with spa. I mean, they were building the most large, beautiful, amazing facilities all over Asia.
Yeah. I think it was during that time when wellness retreats started coming up. So then that's kind of when people started moving from just, like having a spa experience to having a wellness experience. You know.
Right.
So then a lot of the spas realized that they had to expand beyond the massage table and sort of started incorporating holistic treatments, like Reiki, sound bath, you name it, breath work. And that's kind of, I think around that time, like 2000, maybe 15, something like that, that's kind of when that big shift happened. And people started visiting more retreats. It sort of, and the retreats just kind of like mushroomed out of the ground. Yeah.
Didn't you have a role in a wellness center? Was it in Hong Kong?
Yeah, I used to co-own a wellness center. Yeah, so it was called the Sanctuary, and so we had that for about 5 years. Yeah.
And what did you do there? What services did you
So
offer?
So we offered a lot of sort of holistic spiritual experiences. So then like hypnotherapy, Reiki, that kind of thing. We did a lot of workshops as well. Yeah, sort of psychic awareness, that kind of thing. And
So,
it was still a bit sort of ahead of its time. So,
hmm
yeah.
when
Uh,
you were having the wellness center, was it after leaving Asia Spa Magazine or were they
it
concurrent?
was it was during actually.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So
So
that
it was during
really
that time.
gave you a really good grounding in what wellness was evolving into.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So I was able to kind of, I mean, I was sort of, more in the background in the wellness center. So I was doing like newsletters and things like that, like the website and things like that. But it gave me a good understanding of, yeah, the whole wellness scene. Like we had visiting practitioners, and yeah, it was a great experience in that kind of sense, and just, yeah, on a personal level as well.
Right.
Like understanding energy and all that stuff.
So where did the idea for Destination Deluxe come from?
So, so when I was at Asia Spa, it was just covering Asia, and so then I really wanted something that was a bit more global. I wanted our awards are global now as well, and so then I felt like it needed more. Like I felt like it needed less spa and more travel, and that's kind of what I ended up doing with Destination Deluxe. Hence the name. It's called Destination.
Destination. So how do you start it? I mean, you're a person, you have an idea, you have a network in wellness and publishing. I mean, how do you decide, okay, I'm going to start this company
So
and I'm
then
going to be a wellness retreat advisor?
yeah. Yeah. So back then I was still doing a lot of PR for some of the wellness brands, for some skincare brands and some different spas and centers. And that's kind of how it started. So I was doing the website, the online magazine, and at the same time I was still offering PR services. And so in that way I was able to kind of grow the platform
Mm.
while I was still offering PR. Yeah, so I just started working with some of the retreat companies, some of the spas who wanted to move into retreat. So and to this day, I guess a lot of the hotels call me if they want to launch a wellness retreat program, you know.
Mm. So
Help.
you're almost like a wellness retreat consultant, to companies that want to offer that.
Correct. So sometimes it sort of goes hand in hand a little bit, yeah. And so then often I'm sort of the first one to try a specific program, and they'll kind of ask me, like what can we improve? How did you find this and that? And I'm able to kind of advise them on certain things, yeah.
That seems like a tough job.
It depends on how you look at it. I
Well,
mean,
you
some
are
people
giving
may
your
say
body up for science, but still.
yes. Some people say it's a very laid back job. No, it's hard work actually. It's hard work.
So let's look at the big picture of it. I mean, when would you say wellness retreat became really something people were seeking? Was it like 2016, 18, somewhere in
Yeah.
there?
I think it was around sort of 15, 16,
Hmm.
around that time, yeah. And people kind of realized, okay, like we need wellness in our lives. We
Hmm.
need to eat better, we need to sleep better, we need to, I don't know, exercise more efficiently or and I think, and to this day I think a lot of people are looking for a transformation. They're looking for a breakthrough, like a spiritual experience, and they don't label it as such. Like a lot of people, and a lot of the retreats don't say, okay, you're going to have a spiritual experience, but ultimately that's what people are looking for, and
Hmm.
that's kind of like often what the byproduct is of a retreat. Like
Well,
they're
it's
having
difficult to promise a spiritual
correct,
experience,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
We'll circle back to that,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think it makes sense when you think about it, how popular spas became in the aughts, and into the teens. Everyone was going to spas and having massages and facials and body treatments and all the various things. But it makes sense that you would then say, as a consumer, okay, well, now what, right? I've how many facials can I have? Like, what is beyond that? I like the way I feel when I visit that facility. I want more,
Mhm.
so thus the birth, I guess, of seeking something broader.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know, it just kind of that was a sort of natural transition almost. It sort of yeah, people were just people realized that they needed a more sort of holistic experience, as opposed to just, like a physical, I don't know, beauty experience.
Do you
And
remember some of the first wellness retreats that you worked on
some of the first
or
wellness retreats,
visited?
I guess some of the first were really sort of the traditional retreats as opposed to the hotels that just offer
Mm.
wellness programs. So it was sort of the, like the usual suspects that have been around for a long time and have now also expanded, like a lot of the wellness retreats that used to be very holistic are now sort of merging with medical and
You mean like Chivasam or?
correct,
Mm,
Achievasam, Kamalaya,
mm.
those kind of retreats. And I think that's really interesting to see how everything is starting to kind of overlap and how the medical retreats are becoming more, you know, m- like how they're integrating mental wellness, emotional wellness. And I think that's an interesting space, how things are starting to overlap.
So you have a website, Destination Deluxe, and a consumer might go there to say, okay, I want to go on a wellness retreat or I want to explore this concept. What are things that people on the website look for? Like, what are some of the search terms you see that are used most? What are they
Um,
after?
yeah, so like I said earlier, I think a lot of people are looking for spiritual experiences. But yeah, they're not advertised as such. So then it becomes a little bit difficult to kind of and these are requests that we get as well. Like, okay, what retreat should I pick? Where should I go? And so often we get like a whole, their entire health resume, what they've been through and so it's very hard to guide people on, where to go and also to guarantee results, because often people are like, okay, they want to be fixed in a week or two,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and often it's not that easy.
Most
Uh,
times I'd say it's not that easy.
yeah, it's not that easy. And so then, these wellness journeys, as we all know, they're, they're long-term, long-term journeys, long paths. And so yeah, like if someone wants to lose weight or something like that, obviously that's easier than, someone who's struggling with, I don't know, depression or something like
Mm,
that. So
right.
it's really, really difficult. And often we get the retreats involved and have them speak to the retreat. So then someone at the retreat can actually guide them on the different programs that they have. They can tell them exactly, okay, these are the facilities, this is what we can offer, and so on. And I mean, nowadays we work with a wellness travel agency, Lux Wellness Club. And so then nowadays we kind of refer them to our travel agency and they're very good at kind of recommending the right
Mm.
retreat. Yeah.
So I guess there are tactical elements, right? Like you said, the specific of someone says, well, I want to lose weight or I want to get into a better workout routine or something that's physical and easy to track. And then you have, the more difficult
Yeah.
spiritual, I need a path for my life. You
Yeah.
know, does it make sense to start with the tactical and work into the emotional?
I guess as an entry level, it's always good to start there. For someone who's completely new to wellness, I think starting somewhere. Yeah, where you have fitness classes and then maybe you're, introduced to meditation and so on and so on. I think that's always good. In terms of retreats, often it's good to do a mix and then, and when you're there at the retreat, then you can kind of choose other, more treatments or more sessions or, with a specific coach. You know, for example, when I was spending some time at Kamalaya, for example, they were telling me that their coaching sessions, they do really well. And often people don't actually think that they need them. Yeah. So people go on these retreats, these programs, and they're like, yeah, I don't need a coaching session with one of the meditation teachers. But then at the end of the program, they kind of realized that that was the best part, that they
Oh,
were really able to like mentally shift something. And so then And then, when they go home, they can still get coaching sessions online, for example. So I think
Mm.
that's really a nice way to help people, continuously help people. Yeah. With
Well,
these
here,
online offerings that we have nowadays.
oh, sure. I mean, the
Yeah.
online portion, the ability
Yeah.
to continue to connect with the client beyond, because, let's face it, these places are often far flung, not easy to get to, not inexpensive. You can't go once a month, but it's a big investment to make, and then there's nothing,
Yeah.
once you leave there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the introduction part, like as consumer who doesn't know the wellness world, and you
Yeah.
maybe go to, say, Rancho La Puerta. You can even go for 3 or 4 days, and
Mm.
it's fun, right? You realize, oh, it's like camp for grown-ups. We do exercise and we do sound bowls, and the food is healthy, and I learn how to play pickleball, and I take a hike, and then there's a nap, and then, and I think I love that the way that those places kind of introduce a person to the
Yeah.
possibility of more. Do you see it working that way?
Yeah, I also see that a lot. And I quite like that, So it's not like we said, like it's not a full on, okay, you need to have this spiritual experience, It's not in your face. It's like you organically kind of get to that point. Yeah.
I
I
think
like
some consumers think, well, what will I do all day? I mean, I can't just have facials all day. And maybe you do, but I know when I go to those places, I might have a massage, but there's hardly time to fit those things in
Yeah.
because you're so
So
busy doing other
that's-
things and learning how to be creative or make pottery or whatever it may
yeah.
be. So, what retreats are popular right now? What are you seeing people look for?
A lot of medical retreats, with the whole biohacking trend, I feel like a lot of people want to get some blood work done and then see, what they need to do to improve their health. So a lot of retreats are offering things like that, where you get consultants or doctors who will look at the blood work with you and then kind of figure out, a program or just exercises for you. So that's definitely a trend.
Vivian, how is that different from me going to my primary physician and getting blood work done? Like, why would I want to do it on a wellness retreat? What would
Well,
drive that?
I feel like if you just go to your doctor, I feel like often, and that's my personal experience, often I feel like I get blood work done, but then I don't get the necessary guidance.
Mm.
I don't feel like the doctor is actually trying to help me kind of figure out a sort of, I don't know, a program or exercises or just sort of like how to live my life,
Mhm.
according to what's best for me. And so then in a retreat, I feel like you do get that guidance at least over, I don't know, like 7 days or whatever it is. And then you can take home some of the tools, some of the exercises, and then some of the healthy habits and apply those. Yeah. So I do feel people get a lot out of retreats just because you're not distracted. You're not going to be on emails so much, maybe. And then you're really dedicated, you're dedicated to, creating a healthier life for yourself. And so then I
Mhm.
feel like you're really putting in that time for yourself to fully understand how you should live your life
So
or
let's
improve your life, let's say.
let's talk for the listener about what to expect at your standard wellness retreat. Like you just said, well, you're probably not going to be on email. Let,
I guess
why like
yes.
walk
Okay.
us through like what happens when you check in and what does a day usually
Yeah.
look like and why
Yeah.
might I not be on email?
Yeah. Okay, so most retreats will have a consultation when you get there. So a lot of the retreats are customized. Yeah. So they try to customize wherever they can, right? And so they'll try to either take out some of the treatments and replace them or just make sure that you're getting the maximum out of your program. So you have this consultation. And then, yeah, I mean, with the emails and WhatsApp and things, I guess most retreats will try to limit your like the use of technology in certain public areas. They will have certain signs that say, please refrain from using your phone. So they're really trying to get you to do a digital detox as much as possible, which is yeah, which will obviously help you to get the full experience. And then in terms of the treatments, usually it's a very packed schedule, most of the time. And that can be good and bad. I guess it depends on the person, yeah. So then I'm a person I like to have some time in between.
Hmm.
Often, often I don't get any time in between because it's just there's so many things that you want to experience, right? So many treatments, so many different sessions. And so sometimes it's hard because you also want that downtime to kind of integrate certain things, especially if
Hmm.
you're having more sort of spiritual or emotional stuff happening. You do want to get that downtime. So oftentimes you would have some excursions as well. That's usually really nice. I like
Hmm.
that if a retreat kind of tries to, because you don't want to just go to a retreat that you could be doing at home, really. You know what I mean?
Right.
You do
That's what
want
I
to
mean. Like, what's
yeah,
different about that?
yeah. So you do want to pick a place where you kind of get to experience some
The
of the
place, the
surroundings and
local
yeah.
culture and
Yeah. And
flora
also
and fauna.
retreats kind of incorporate some of the local culture, not just in spa treatments or cuisine, but also, in terms of I don't know, like different arts and crafts or, the
Hmm.
different sessions that you get to try there. Yeah. So that's really nice. I usually I welcome that a lot. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
long is the typical retreat?
I mean, it can range from 3 days to 14 days, something like that.
Hmm.
A lot of the time, I think maybe 5 days. That's a good amount.
Hmm.
Yeah. And often you need at least 4 days to kind of touch down.
Hmm. It's true. You don't
Right.
think you do, but you
Survive.
realize by the
Yeah.
third or fourth
Yeah.
day that,
Yeah.
oh, right, this is
Yeah.
how I used to feel
Yeah.
before I had a
Yeah.
lot of work to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And so then it's nice if you get like 7 days or longer. Then
Hmm.
you really start to detach from your life back home or like family or friends or whatever, and you start to focus more on yourself. Yeah.
Funny how quickly that can happen when you think about it. I mean, you have years of a habit of your life, and then a week later you can be like, "What family? What are you talking about?" Uh, you do. It's really, for me, it's something about being in a different space, right? Not your
Yeah.
home. And, to your point of, well, I want something I can't do at home, but you're in that routine of things around you, and to change that routine, I think is really important.
Yeah.
What are some of the elements, Vivian, you would say that make a really good retreat?
Make a really good retreat. Needs to be authentic.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because everybody can tell if it's just, you know, if they just put on a program just kind of because they think this will sell well. So it really needs to be authentic. They need to have good practitioners as opposed to just getting your staff, your spa staff to be the breathwork coach, the yoga teacher,
Hmm.
you know.
And also answer the phone at the front desk. And
Exactly,
right, yeah.
exactly. So getting experts in is good. Because people notice that. And people really appreciate that. Yeah. Um, what else? Customization. So then people really want that sort of, yeah, they want to personalize their retreat. Guidance. Like I've also had retreats where I've just been sort of dropped off.
Mm.
Nobody kind of like looked after me, maybe.
Hmm.
I think that's also a thing where people want to feel taken care of. They want to feel
Hmm.
safe. And I've had experiences where that was kind of missing, and then you're kind of, you don't really know. I mean, of course, you're having this experience, but you don't really like. There's no input, there's no guidance from it. So I feel that's quite important. But
Like
obviously,
going to an art museum and looking at the art, but without having anything
yes,
to read about the art, right? So
yeah,
it's nice, but you don't get the level of understanding you
yeah,
might have with some guidance.
yeah. And then also you would want to share certain experiences, especially if it involves, I don't know, meditation or something, right? So you would want to talk about that experience with a coach or with someone who's guiding you. What else? What makes a good retreat? Obviously, food. Food plays a huge role.
I know, I'm glad you brought that up because we
Yeah,
haven't discussed it at all. But when you
yeah,
are going to a place and you're staying there on the property,
yeah,
you're eating their food. And, that is, I would think, an important component.
yeah. Yeah, very much. So obviously a lot of the retreats, if it's just a hotel, let's say, that is kind of offering programs, often nowadays they would have a wellness menu. So that's good. Or just like a normal menu and they would kind of like highlight which dishes are more healthy. What else? What makes a good retreat? Nature, a place
Mhm.
that kind of incorporates nature is always good because people need that connect or connecting with other people at the retreat. A
Mm,
lot of them have communal tables. I think that's always a nice touch. You can engage or not. And I
mhm.
think it's always nice because it also gives people, and I think the places that have that, people tend to want to come back because they've had such a nice experience in terms of like, people they've met
I
and
agree. It's fun to meet people and
yeah.
see why they're there and where they're from, and to meet,
Yeah.
have hour-long conversations, but you feel more connected
Yeah, yeah,
to
absolutely.
the place, and I
Yeah,
think it helps you to remember better what the experience was like once you've
yeah,
left.
yeah. And also for the retreat itself, it's like it's good marketing. People have their own community. People talk about you and sort of yeah, and share it with other people like word of mouth. So that's good. What else makes a good retreat? I don't know. I can't think of anything else.
Let's circle back to the food. Uh,
Yes.
I mean, what what would you expect to see in the food at a wellness retreat?
What would I expect to see? There's different like options. I like having options because everybody has a different diet nowadays. Some are plant-based, some still want, I don't know, grass-fed,
Hmm.
whatever. People want alternative like milk, natural milk.
Right, all the milks. Mm.
And so then, yeah, everybody wants something different. And so then having variety, I think that's quite important.
The food would be healthy.
Yes, yes.
Have you
Uh,
been at places where they just serve you versus you choosing? And do you have a thought on that?
yeah. I've had retreats like that, and sometimes that's tough,
Hmm.
where you're just being served something. Because if you don't like it, then I mean, I'm not such a picky eater, so it's not too bad. But I can imagine for some people, it's sort of like, okay, what if I can't eat this dish? Then I'll just be hungry for
Hmm.
like the next few hours, right? And so sometimes that's really hard. I remember attending a retreat where I couldn't pick any of the food, and the food wasn't very good, and so it was a bit it
Mm.
yeah it was a bit difficult. Yeah,
Now, I want to give a different viewpoint, though, that I've had, say, at Lanzerhof,
yeah,
where you're prescribed your food
yeah, yeah,
and I think there are a few small options, but they're not that many. Just I
yeah,
think they're enough to make you feel like there are
yeah.
options. But I loved not thinking about it. I loved like just sitting down and having them
Yes.
bring me food and I ate it and I knew it would be good for me and it was
Yeah,
beautifully presented. I mean,
yeah,
it looks beautiful and you can't believe that it's what they said it was. And
yeah,
and I felt like that for me, that just took out a whole thing I had to
yeah.
think about.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I'm usually like that as well. I remember doing a retreat at Chanot in Switzerland as well, Chanot Palace Vecchis. And there, obviously, the food is also phenomenal, right? It's like really high end, really
Hmm.
beautifully presented. And yeah, I didn't have to think about it. And I knew it was going to be good. And
Right.
so you don't have to worry about that. So that's a nice touch, actually. Yeah.
Do you see often where properties will give nutrition guidance or cooking class or something to help people
Yeah.
maintain that diet when they go back home?
Yeah, a fair bit actually. A lot of the hotels do cooking classes, I guess. And then in terms of nutrition, yeah, sometimes you would have a nutrition session in there with a coach or a doctor or someone who can recommend what's good for you according to your dosha or your
Mhm.
blood type or whatever. So yeah, I do think that's quite helpful. Yeah.
All right, conversely, are there any elements of retreats you think don't really work and they shouldn't be included, or you've seen them have a bad result?
Retreats that don't work.
Like, I mean, elements of a retreat. Let's
Yeah.
say, you went and it's like, yeah, that wasn't really so useful or helpful or enjoyable.
Hmm. I can't think of anything. I
Okay.
don't know. I can't think of anything. Do
Well,
you,
then
do you,
we'll skip that one.
um, there must be, there must be
Well,
lots
if
of,
you
I
can't
can't
think
think
of
of any.
some, I mean, you've been on 1,000 retreats. If you haven't gone and said, "Oh, yeah, that was not a good idea," then
I guess it always depends, like, yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything right now.
okay,
Let me, let me, let
okay,
me,
we can
let's
come
circle
back
back.
to that.
Yes.
Okay. So, if a property, let's say it's a hotel that's not a wellness destination, but they want to start a wellness retreat, what are some things they need to think about?
If it's a hotel, you're saying
Yes, a
they want
hotel,
to
not a
offer,
purpose-built wellness retreat, but we'll start
yeah,
with a hotel that says, we're in a nice location
yeah,
and we'd like to host a wellness retreat. What
yeah.
should they be planning? How?
So that's the thing. Not so easy sometimes, like I think a lot of the times hotels think, okay, we'll just put on this wellness program and wellness people will come. It's not that easy. So
Mm-hmm.
then, oftentimes they launch these programs and then they kind of realize, okay, nobody's signing up for these like full-fledged programs, but people want something more sort of, they call it like light wellness, where they come maybe with their family and then the husband or the wife would then kind of just have some spa treatments, maybe some holistic treatments, maybe some medical checkups or something. And they're more sort of like they're on like they choose things from the menu as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to they have this like full-on program, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
often when they're there with their family, right? They want to spend time with their family. They're not able to kind of have this like full-on day program, right?
Right.
And so then a lot of the times the hotels then kind of end up going back to sort of a more light version.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
And
could
so
see that.
yeah, because it's quite, yeah, it's not, first of all, they don't have the clientele, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, I get where they're coming from. They want to open up to a new audience, right? So I get it, yeah. But it also means, and it might be a nice entry point for some people, where they still get to experience all the hotel facilities,
Mm-hmm.
but they can kind of, you know, let's say dabble in wellness or kind of like, they can do something that's wellness related. So it can work for sure. Yeah.
I'm thinking about a place like Bad Ragaz where you can go with a partner and you can do your wellness routine, and the partner can just go play tennis and, not do that, but you could
Yeah.
be at the same place. So there are advantages to that also.
Sure.
If you
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're not with a partner or a companion that wants to go all
Yes.
in on the wellness, but it seems that the best results would be achieved when you are at a purpose-built
Yeah.
destination.
Yeah. I think so too. Yeah. Yeah.
So, what are some of the more memorable places, Vivienne, that you've been? Because you've been to most of them. Where have you left and said, wow, that was really transformative?
It's like asking me to pick my favorite child.
Your favorite child of all those children?
Some of the more memorable places in terms of just overall, or
What sticks in your mind when I ask you that question? What
I
pops up?
mean, for example, and I guess each retreat specializes in something else, I
Hmm.
suppose. Okay, so I'll just name a few. For example, Chanel, which we talked about, was really great. I did a fast retreat, and I think that was my first fast actually, like proper fast, where there were doctors and everything, because I was quite scared of
Mm.
fasting. And so I knew, and I think at one point I kind of passed out in the shower
Oh,
and or nearly passed out. And so then I was really happy that there were doctors there. Yeah. So that was really important for me. Um, So then in terms of like a more holistic retreat, maybe Kamalaya,
Hmm.
um, something medical, maybe Raksa in Thailand. What else? I mean, I've tried so many good retreats. It's hard.
Nature. What's one that you
Nature.
think of when you think of nature?
Um, like a full-on retreat in nature. Yeah, I can only think of a few hotels at the moment that have sort of some wellness offerings.
Well, instead of a wellness retreat, I'm saying not a hotel, but a wellness retreat destination that had great nature.
Nature. Having a brain freeze. I can't think of anything. Let me
Something
think.
in Bali or in Southeast Asia or
Yeah, nature elements. I guess most retreats have some sort of nature element,
Mhm.
you know? I mean, Five Elements in Bali that has
Mm,
like beautiful, I mean, Como Shambhala in Bali.
mm. Beautiful. I've been
Stunning
there.
property.
Unbelievable.
I mean, you wouldn't even have to do any of the treatments and you're already
So happy when I stayed there and
yeah,
I had
the
my own little
properties.
pool and I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
I could
yeah,
live here forever.
yeah. And so, and I guess that's a good example of where, the just the space that you're in is just like so healing, you can just
Hmm.
like unwind and just be transported to a totally different place, just in your mind where you're just like so detached from your day-to-day life.
How
Yeah.
about a retreat destination where you've had really interesting experiences, like that were creative or fun?
Creative or fun. Um, Let me think. I mean, yeah, creative or fun. A lot of the retreats have some kind of sessions where you kind of create your own, I don't know, like your own potions and things. So that's always nice to kind of make something.
Hmm.
I don't know, pottery classes or
Right.
earlier. I
Express your
remember,
creative side.
yeah, I remember being at Zulal in
Hmm.
Qatar and I had like a pottery class there, for
Mm.
example. That was really nice. Just places where I remember, I think it was at Anantara in Siem Reap where I created my own. You got your own herbs, and then you created these like little pouches for the
Mhm.
massage treatments, and yeah, just things like that.
I've
Yeah.
done a few of those things at Bridalhof,
Yeah.
like make your own potion or
Yeah.
aroma. And one thing I thought was really creative there was, it's in that valley where they have all apple trees. It's,
Yeah.
way in the north of Italy, for
Yeah.
listeners, but it's not vines, it's apples. All the apples are grown here. And they had an experience on the menu of eating an apple.
Hmm.
And so Patrizia Bortolin, who designed it, took the whole concept of being in this place full of apples and had a session where you sit and eat apples and you cut them and you taste them and you think about them. And I thought that was a really creative way to use the
Yeah.
space you're in and the local
Yeah.
culture in a way that was intentional.
I've done the same session
Uh-huh.
and I thought it was really inspiring as well. Yeah, because it gives you something from the sort of local culture and then yeah, just the experience alone, you kind of realize like I've never eaten an apple like that. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You have a new
Yeah.
appreciation. I love
Very
that.
conscious of yeah. Like
How important is the fitness part to you? Like that they have an extensive fitness
that.
facility?
I think it depends on the treatment and then also kind of maybe the phase that I'm in. Sometimes when I'm really overworked, and I think a lot of people are overworked, a lot of people who go for like burnout retreats that aren't necessarily labeled as such, but just people need to unwind and kind of get back to their own sort of power, strength. And then I feel like often fitness isn't necessary. But of
Hmm.
course, I think a lot of people need to have a gym or need to have, I don't know, options to exercise, be
Hmm.
that outside with like a jungle gym or something, or even just being able to like run on the beach or something like that. I think there needs to be the opportunity for that,
Especially
definitely.
for people that run, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're in the mountain retreat, you may not be
Yes.
able to do that. So having the
But I
gym
think
is
most
nice.
retreats have a gym. Yeah, most. Yeah.
Hmm. I'm thinking about Carillon in Florida,
Yeah.
incredible wellness retreat, a hotel, but
Yeah.
also having wellness retreats and an amazing, gym, like fully equipped
Yeah.
gym and studio classes. And of course, you can go out and ride a bike on the beach.
Yes.
But then also a mixture of interesting classes. She has a whole sexual wellness guidance person there, which I think is very interesting.
That
And
sounds so
couples come together and they talk
interesting.
about it. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's
Always
so
something
interesting. I
new. I
didn't know
know,
that.
right? Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge upcoming trend still. Yeah.
Hmm.
Sexual.
And
Nice.
femtech, all of those
Yeah. 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 Okay. I'll
feminine
need
things.
to look into that.
Well, it sort of also plays into that role, not the sexual wellness part, but that, so many people are traveling alone now.
Hmm.
And solo travel is becoming so popular. And it's yet not because people want to be alone. They just are alone in their life and they want to go and do something, but they want to do it with people who share their um, approach, say.
Yeah.
So it seems that a wellness retreat would be a really good way to connect with people
Mhm.
that share your values. Would you
Yeah.
say so?
Yeah. I've met really interesting people on some of the wellness retreats. I think it's and I think that sort of speaks for the whole wellness community. It's like people like getting together. I think it's
Mhm.
just that wellness community that likes connecting with people and sharing.
Talk a little bit about a logistical issue with a wellness retreat, what it costs, and
Yeah.
how do you I mean, there's such a range of pricing. I expect that most are priced by the time, and it's not your meal or your session. But what are you finding, Vivienne? What should people look for when they're looking for how much a retreat should cost?
I mean, that's so difficult to say. It's sort of it, as you just said, like there's such a range. It's really up to the person's budget. What are the treatments that you're being offered? Are you getting blood work? Like all the stuff. Are you just getting a few meditations and I don't know, vegetarian meals, or are you getting, I don't know, are you getting high-end cuisine? Or it's just it's so difficult to say what a retreat should be charging.
Do you
Yeah.
think the price changes based on the food? Or do you get are there
Uh,
retreat programs where you don't get 3 meals a day, you get two, or how does that affect it?
I mean, it's with anything else as well. It's kind of like, branding as well plays into it. Like some brands, they just have a really good name and they can charge more.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, so it really depends. And I think that's where you have to you have to look at reviews, of a place. You speak to other people and see what their experience was. And often it's just, these experiences are they're so individual. It's like, just because I like it doesn't mean that you will have a good time.
Hmm. No, it's true.
Oh.
It has to be personal to you and your needs and your situation at that point in
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
I
yeah.
I think you can go to, let's say, a hotel retreat program for a few $1,000s, or you could spend I have an acquaintance who just went to the La Prairie clinic in Switzerland a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
And when he told me what he spent, I was like, what? Is that possible? I mean, it was let's say it was north of $50,000 for the week.
yeah.
And
For the
I
week. Okay.
for a week. Now he had some testing that is
Yeah.
optional, and not everyone has that, but and not that many people can afford that. But
Yeah.
if you spend that money and you have it and you feel like, oh my gosh, I feel so good. I feel like I feel better physically, I feel better emotionally because I learned things and I know where I am on my, bodily journey. I mean, then it is worth it, right? It's like you say, it's hard to quantify it,
Yeah. Yeah. Really
what it's
difficult.
worth for you.
Yeah, what it's worth for you. Yeah. Yeah. And then this is also, like sometimes we did one retreat last year and we were kind of like looking at organizing our own retreat again this year. And it's so hard to figure out what to charge. What are people willing to pay? It's
Hmm.
just, it varies from person to person. Yeah.
So the reviews are, I'm assuming, a really good way to find out because if you're a person looking for a retreat, it's a big investment, not
Yeah.
just the money, but the time and flying who knows where. And
Yeah.
you don't want to do it and choose it and find it wasn't the right one. So uh, going to a website like yours
Yeah.
or reading the reviews on Google or wherever, you think that's the best way to really decide?
I mean, so like I said, we refer them to Lux Wellness Club, and so then they would have, an expert to talk to, and they can voice all their concerns and their needs, and they will be guided. For someone who doesn't want that, or who doesn't have the time to do that, well, I guess they would still be reading the reviews online. So then I do think you need to put some research
Hmm.
into it, or you're just like, okay, I'll just try, I'll just give it a shot and see. But I think for people who are looking for a specific result, for a specific outcome, they should, and they really value the money that they're spending. So then they should look at reviews for sure. Google reviews or TripAdvisor and or different Facebook communities or whatever, and yeah, and ask other people.
Tell us
Yeah.
about the Destination Deluxe Awards,
Yeah.
program. Like, how did that evolve?
Yeah. So we have our awards once a year. And so we have an event that's attached to it. So where we reveal all the winners. So that happens in September every year in Bangkok. And it's grown over the last few years. It's grown into kind of like a 1.5 day wellness event where we have different panel discussions. We have different workshops as well, wellness workshops. And then in the evening, we have the awards. And so the awards are judged by 21 judges.
Hmm.
And then we have three categories which are open to the public. So then everybody can vote on these three different categories.
Which
Yeah.
are what?
And so one's like hotels, retreats, and then the
Hmm.
other one's sort of spas and treatments. And then the third one is sort of skincare.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
so that's gotten very popular, your award program.
Yeah, so we get a lot of we get like over 1,000 nominations.
That's a
And then
lot.
yeah, yeah. And then we break it down. We create kind of like a finalist list, and then from the finalist list, the judges vote, and then the public votes. And so
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, good for you for seeing
But
a hole in that market.
and we've got some new categories. So we have a new category for wellness practitioners. So if
Hmm.
anyone's
Oh,
a wellness
that's great.
practitioner listening, yes. So we really wanted to kind of honor some of the practitioners who work in this field. Travel agencies is a new one as well, just opening it up to more sort of travel as opposed to just hotels.
Hmm.
What else do we have? Like beauty device is
Hmm.
one new category, like longevity wellness brand, that's another new one. So yeah, so we're trying to keep up with the
Good.
new trends and creating new categories. Yeah.
Well, that's a great segue into my last question for you, Vivienne, which is the future. Longevity is the word. I went to the longevity summit at FIBO, and there's another longevity summit. Is it
You
next
went to
week in
FIBO.
Lisbon? It's what everyone wants. Of course, we want to live longer, but the results of that are harder to see. If I go to a wellness retreat to improve my longevity and I spend $20,000 in 8 days and I come away, I don't know. if it worked yet. So how do you see retreats managing that process as people get so much more into the biohacking aspect?
Yes and no. I feel like a lot of the things you can measure nowadays, especially with the blood work, you
Mhm.
can you can get your metabolic age, for example, and then if you keep going back to the same place, then obviously you can start to improve that, right? By
Right, but it wouldn't be at the end of your first 7-day stay.
yes, true,
Yeah.
true, true. Yeah, true.
But you would go back and see your markers change.
Yes. Yeah. Uh, but in terms of like, I think there's some places who've already started to measure your sleep. For example, I remember being at Pridelhof and getting one of those wristbands, to track my sleep and then, to see how that improved over that week that I was there. So I think there are some things that you can measure, like nowadays you can measure your brain waves and everything and, when you sit in meditation and things like that. So I think there's some things that you can measure at the end of your retreat. But obviously, yeah, most of it you would have to go back for that and then see, okay, how has it changed over the last 6 months or over the last 12 months? And yeah.
Do you see retreats in the future offering? How do you think the offerings will evolve?
Yeah, it's becoming, or at least the things that I'm seeing becoming more medical, yeah, more like the biohacking stuff. And then also, spiritually, like all the psychedelic retreats that are kind of
Mhm.
popping up. I think there's a huge market for that because people are really seeking those kinds of transformations.
Mhm.
And if it's good or bad, I'm still a bit I'm still unsure.
Uh-huh. Well, if it's good for someone,
Yeah.
it's good for them, right?
Yeah, I mean the psychedelic retreats, I do feel, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like it's missing that kind of guidance afterwards, like I feel the integration part
You
is
have the experience of it, but then you go back to your
yeah,
life and
yeah. So what I hear often is that, people go on these retreats, they have this massive experience, this profound experience, and then they're back in their daily life and they don't really.
reentry is not so smooth.
Y- Yeah, the reentry or also like what do I do with that information, with
Mm.
that experience? What do I do with that? And how do I continue to grow spiritually, you know,
Hmm.
without, like a lot of people just keep doing these like ayahuasca retreats, but they don't have a practice in between.
Hmm.
And I find that a little bit dangerous, maybe.
Hmm.
Or maybe dangerous is the wrong word, but sort of. Yeah, I just feel like maybe that integration process could be a bit more, maybe smooth is also the wrong word, but like I feel like there needs to be more work done,
Hmm.
you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they'll call you and ask you for your help on figuring that part out. Well, Vivienne Tang, it was great
Yes,
to
it was
speak
lovely.
with you. Thank you so much for connecting with us in your busy schedule. Vivienne, again, is the founder of Destination Deluxe, and you can check out the website at destinationdeluxe.com and follow Vivienne Tang on Instagram for some amazing pictures. And thank you again. It was great to see you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Hope this will inspire one of the other persons. Good. Thank you.